Hey traders, welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth. Today is November 4th. It is Wednesday. And in today's video, we're going to discuss the president still undecided, and we'll go over a few news and events. We'll keep this video a little shorter today. I know a lot of people are probably tired of watching the screen. I know I am, watching the results, etc., etc. So before we dive in, just make sure to hit the like, subscribe, and tick the bell to be notified on any future updates. We do these updates daily for daily market recaps, usually after the close, but sometimes we do a midday update as well, just so you're aware. So taking a look at some news and events. So we saw in the morning that Trump tried to claim victory even as ballots are still being counted in several states. And a lot of his Republican counterparts were saying that it was dumb and they have no idea what he's talking about. There's no basis. He's saying that there was fraud, blah, blah, blah. And all these Republicans were basically saying to just ignore them and stay out of it and continue counting. And it's getting ridiculous. It's kind of expected at this point, but it's an absolute shame that, you know, they have someone like, I mean, not to get political, but it's just to completely divide a country. And you look at, and if I saw something on CNN, if they would have just stopped right then and there and stopped the counting, Biden would have won. So if they would have listened to Trump, he would have lost. So it's even more dumb of a comment. And then Biden basically just sits there all nonchalant and cool and says, "Don't worry about it. Like we'll let it all unfold. Let the votes count and keep counting." And he urges patience while Trump is basically calling the system a fraud. And it's just, I can't wait until this is over with and done with, and we can move on from this. And to be honest, I really hope that Biden wins personally. 'Cause I'm just sick and tired of all these false comments, and just it's getting very hard on the head. I don't know if I'm mentally prepared for a Trump victory, and I'm not even from the States. So again, that's about as far into it I'll get in terms of political, but you can see here that Biden is maintaining a lead, 237 versus 213 on the road to 270, and some key states still coming in. So we'll continue to monitor that as well. But we did see that McConnell says that number one priority is to reach a stimulus deal. And now that the Senate is likely to be held by Republicans, again, this could change, but it's certainly looking like there's not going to be a blue wave, a sweep. So if that were to maintain the case, then we could probably expect a skinny bill versus a larger package if the Democrats would have won the House, Senate, and the presidency. So I would say a skinny bill is probably on the horizon, but I would say most of the market right now is pricing in a big bill because they were expecting a Biden win. And last night it was looking really good for the Democrats before the whole Trump comment about everything being a fraud and to stop the voting. We also have voting still coming in from veterans and people who are overseas in the Navy and soldiers, that type of thing. So that can be delayed about a week, and it's probably going to take to the weekend, like I've been calling for in a bunch of videos now, saying that it was probably going to be the weekend before we know, maybe even next week. So don't get too caught up in the day-to-day operations right now, because it could be a long process. We also saw that private payroll growth slows in October. So the ADP jobs came in with a huge miss. So it increased by 365,000 in October versus 600,000 estimate. Total was well below the 753 from September and the lowest since July. So that was the economic data that we had today. We also have the Fed tomorrow afternoon, and in the morning we have the continuing jobless claims as well. So we'll take a look at some broader market. I want to highlight what I saw today in SPY. So from the gap up this morning, the most likely scenario was an equilibrium, and that's exactly what we got. We saw a huge gap up, and bulls were just right out of the gate again today, just like yesterday, very similar. And I was expecting a little bit of a sell-off into the close. We had a very similar pattern, gap up and straight moonshot to begin the day, and then a fade, and then a ramp, and then a sell-off. And then today we had the similar move where we had a huge move up. We had an EQ there on the 5 minute, and we had a 15-minute head and shoulders forming as well, and then a sell off into the end of the day. So very similar patterns. We're well into the daily bounce as well on SPY. You can see here, but the daily candle very bearish with an upper wick there forming as well. You can see that we had huge volume today, but a lot of that would have been sell volume as well due to the upper wick. But let's just take a look at the 5 minutes. So I'll give you some play-by-play. I swung some MJ, and I also had some tech and some other miscellaneous stocks as well. Didn't go out. My US MJ wasn't that affected, but Canadian MJ definitely got slammed. And my SPXS and my SQQQ hedge, those got slammed today as well, which were down 10, 15%. And VIX today closed down 16%. So some huge downsides there on the leverage ETFs and the volatility index. But to begin the day, I was just working on recouping some of those losses. So I entered long in the morning on SPXL, which is the 3X bull ETF. And I was expecting a similar move to yesterday. Once we got above EMA 12, I was going to use that as a visual guide. And I kept that position until we lost it, which was right here. Exited a little too early, but I was fine with that. I made good profits. And I also noticed that at that time, we were forming bearish RSI divergence. So price was trending higher, but the RSI was trending lower. So that's why I got out here whenever we lost EMA 12. We did close just barely below it, but as soon as we lost it, that's when I was out. We were also coming off 5 minute overbought, but then, like I said, I sold a little bit too early. But then you can see here that once I sold, I basically was identifying this equilibrium as the most likely scenario after a huge move up. So we did break that bull, and I re-entered SPXL on this bull break here of 346.47. Once we broke that, that's whenever I entered SPXL and just entered at 346.47, sold at 347.47 just for a quick dollar flip. And then that's whenever I noticed again that the price was continuing to trend up, even though that the RSI was trending down. So I doubled down on my short position on SPXS at that point. Also identified a possible 15-minute head and shoulders was forming, which looked to confirm into the end of the day. We didn't see huge follow through, but we could look out for an hourly bull flag as well. But based on the size of this pullback, the odds of that are definitely diminishing. But you can see here on the 15-minute, we had a head and shoulders forming. That's why I also was looking to get out as well once we broke that EQ bullish. So I covered that position and then went short, and I basically held that into the end of the day. And I'm still swinging some SPXS as well and some SQQQ overnight. I have a bigger position in SPXS, swinging some MJ, swinging some tech. Got a fairly decent size portfolio right now and just hedging. And like I said, all day we were rejecting. Once we lost that EMA 12, it started to act as resistance. We poked above, but again, no 5 minute trend change. We needed to see 5 minute trend changes. We went straight into a 5 minute downtrend. When we broke above here, you could have easily gotten faked out, but we didn't change the 5 minute trend down into a lower low. And then again, EMA 12 just rock solid all day or all afternoon. And then into the end of the day, you can see here that we did the same thing. We broke above and slammed right back down into a new low. So that's whenever I covered a lot of my SPXS in the end of the day. We also had huge volume there on the sell side in the end of the day as well. But that's when I covered most of my position on SPXS, and I'm still swinging a little bit of that as well into the evening. But some clear setups today that we could have identified and helped us with our trading, and some clear setups that if you would have used those EQs and the head and shoulders and the bearish RSI divergence, could have made some decent gains as well. So taking a look at QQQ is very similar, pretty much following the same formation here on the head and shoulders in the 15 minute, except we did bounce into the end of the day. So QQQ definitely leading the charge in terms of percentage gained in today's trading session. But just keep an eye out for that potential head and shoulders that could be a fake out right now into the end of the day. Certainly wouldn't surprise me based on the shenanigans that we've seen over the last few weeks. And we did see that gold as well last night. Huge volatility there into the election. So we got as high as 1916. Then we dropped about 2% in 4 bars here in 20 minutes. So we dropped 2% in 20 minutes from 1916 down to 1882, which is a huge drop. And then once Biden started to gain the lead, we started to blast off because people were anticipating more stimulus and the Democrats passing that. And we are selling off here. Could be a potential 5-minute bull flag. But gold still maintaining this weekly descending triangle. We did poke above it, but again, if you're using the real body candles, then you'll see that we did pull back within there, and we could go sideways for another week or two. What I could see happening is the election taking forever to determine. Maybe there's legal action as well. Maybe they do a bunch of recounting. Maybe they take it to court. Could be a long process. Maybe it's a week or two. We still got the rest of this week, so 2 more trading days. Then we got all of next week, the week after that, and then we could potentially see a break. Doesn't have to happen that way. It could break tomorrow, it could break in a month, but that's what I'm expecting, is a prolonged delayed reaction, finding out who the president is, and then what I expect is a downfall to the downside as potential result of riots or social unrest, that type of thing. Maybe we see more cases ramp up and lockdowns as well over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's what I'd be watching out for. I'm definitely leaning bearish. And also one thing I wanted to highlight here as well on SPY, while I think of it, the monthly consolidation, we do have a monthly inside bar forming, but we're favoring right now a weekly EQ. So high, low, lower, high, higher, low. And today we did break above the previous week. So the weekly bounce was underway, but you could see we could be topping out here. If we're going to go sideways in this equilibrium a little bit longer, we could be topping out here. And if that's the case, then we'll look for a higher low compared to 322.60. And we could go sideways here for another couple of weeks, like I said, and follow that gold pattern. We also have the same pattern on Apple. So a lot of names, the bigger tech names, and the bigger ETFs, high, low, lower, high, higher, low, forming those weekly EQs. So what's some potential clues that we have? So we have gold forming that descending triangle. We have SPY and QQQ in their weekly equilibrium. So if we start to break down from those weekly equilibriums and set weekly downtrends, that'll be a very good clue that we can expect a fairly decent sell-off and that descending triangle to follow through on gold. We also have the weekly head and shoulders on Amazon. So this could potentially line up well with the equilibriums breaking bearish. This could line up well with gold breaking the descending triangle bearish down to 1700 support. So this is why I'm leaning a little bit bearish, but staying prepared for both cases. But essentially, if gold can get over, I'll bring up MSFT, same thing here. So again, lines up well with the gold descending triangle. So if we just bring up gold here again, if we break above the 1933 level and break that significantly and convincingly, then I would negate this pattern. But we can break above like we did. We can set a couple wicks above that trend line, but as long as we close within that trend line, it's just fake outs in my opinion, and we remain bearish. So that is why I'm leaning bearish into the next few weeks. That's my game plan, is to just continue maintaining my portfolio, not giving any profits back, not taking on too much risk until we get a little bit more clarity on what to expect. So that's pretty much all I have there. The dollar saw some huge swings last night as well. Still looking for a daily higher low. Bulls gave themselves a lot of room though to form that daily higher low in attempt of a daily trend change to the bulls. Oil as well, getting a huge daily bounce going over EMA 12, and could be similar to what the dollar did, just looking to create a big enough bounce on the daily to set a higher low and higher high. But all stocks, anyone who owns stocks, anyone who owns gold or Bitcoin, you're going to want to see the dollar break down. And I saw a couple of articles today saying that there's probably not much more risk to shorting the dollar to the downside. I would agree with that, but I wouldn't say that there's no room for downside. But I think what they meant to say is the majority of the move has already been had and has already been made. So if you haven't realized those gains, then you're probably a little bit late to the party. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. MJ today, still very inverse to SPY, I noticed. So you could see that CGC pulled back, so SPY gapped up, CGC gapped down. So we're basically going inverse CGC. You can see that we have this, this broadening pattern here and this channel forming. So we did bounce right off of that support, and we'll see if bulls can make their way back up to the $20 range or $21 range to fill the top of that channel to continue to form. We do have some heavy sell volume there. We do have a lower wick, and we have earnings coming up on the 9th as well. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. We did see, like I said, a very inverse relationship to SPY and especially the Canadian MJ sector, not so much the US sector. But in my opinion, I think a Biden win in presidency and the Senate would be good for the Republicans to maintain for a skinny bill. Obviously, if the Democrats win the Senate, then a much larger bill can be expected. Probably going to hurt the dollar and help equities and metals and crypto. And if Biden loses the presidency, it's not complete, or if Biden wins the presidency and they lose the Senate, it's not completely the end of the world for MJ. We also saw that New Jersey approved adult legalization and recreational use. So we could start to see New York potentially this year or next year start to move toward that as well. But one thing I'm watching out for is this prolonged election result scandal, if you call it. But you know, whether or not you believe there's fraud going on, I don't think there is, but I think it's just a way for them to create panic and to try to sway the system in their favor and catch their opponent off guard. Who knows what Trump's motivation was there, but I personally don't think there's any fraud, but I do think it's going to take quite a while. I'm expecting some point next week before we get a clear-cut answer. Could be a couple weeks, and if that's the case, we could see a lot of social unrest and rioting. So just be safe out there. Make sure you establish a game plan, and we will check back with you guys tomorrow for another daily market recap. Thanks again for joining us on The Pursuit of Wealth, and best of luck tomorrow.